Long ago, in the bright city of Athens, there lived a young king named Leon. He was wise, brave, and admired by his people. Every day, noble families brought their daughters to the palace, hoping the king would choose one of them as his future queen. The women wore beautiful dresses, expensive jewelry, and sweet perfumes. They smiled, bowed, and spoke only the words they believed the king wanted to hear. At first, Leon enjoyed meeting them, but after many months he became tired. Every conversation sounded the same. Every smile seemed carefully planned. He began to wonder if anyone would ever love him simply because he was a man, not because he wore a crown. One evening, he stood alone on the palace balcony, looking at the busy streets below. "Perhaps," he whispered, "the woman I seek is not inside these palace walls." The next morning, Leon dressed himself in old, torn clothes. He covered his fine hair with a simple hood, left his royal sword behind, and carried only a worn walking stick. His closest friend and captain of the royal guard, Marcus, looked at him with great concern. "Your Majesty, this is dangerous. If anyone discovers your true identity, your life could be in danger." Leon smiled. "Then no one must discover it. Today I am not a king. I am simply a traveler named Thalon." Marcus sighed. "At least allow me to follow from a distance." Leon nodded. "Only if you promise not to interfere, unless my life is truly in danger." Together they quietly left the palace through a hidden gate. For the first time in many years, Leon walked through the city without servants or guards surrounding him. He watched children laughing in the streets, fishermen selling fresh fish, musicians playing cheerful songs, and families sharing bread together. It was a life he had almost forgotten. As he wandered farther from the palace, he heard loud voices coming from the city square. Curious, he walked closer. Hundreds of people had gathered around a large platform decorated with olive branches and white flowers. Musicians played joyful music while priests dressed in white robes prepared a beautiful golden laurel wreath. Leon asked an old man beside him, "What is happening?" The old man smiled. "Surely you are not from Athens. Today is the laurel choosing. Lord Demetrios' daughter must choose her husband." Leon had never seen such a ceremony before. The old man continued, "According to ancient custom, the young lady throws Apollo's sacred laurel wreath into the crowd. Whoever catches it becomes the man she must marry. Once the wreath is caught, the gods have spoken." Leon looked toward the platform. A beautiful young woman stepped forward. She wore a simple white dress instead of expensive jewels. Her long dark hair moved gently in the warm afternoon wind. Although many handsome noblemen smiled proudly at her, she did not seem happy. Her name was Helena, the only daughter of Lord Demetrios, one of the richest merchants in Greece. Lord Demetrios raised both hands proudly. "Citizens of Athens, today my daughter will choose her husband according to the sacred tradition of Apollo. May the gods bless this union." The crowd cheered loudly. Many rich young nobles moved closer, hoping to catch the wreath. Some even quietly pushed one another aside. Helena looked across the crowd. She noticed proud men smiling with confidence, believing victory already belonged to them. Then, standing quietly near the edge of the square, she noticed a poor traveler dressed in worn clothes. Unlike everyone else, he did not push forward. He simply watched with calm eyes. Something about him felt different. Before Helena could think further, the priest raised the golden wreath. "Let Apollo guide your choice." Helena closed her eyes, whispered a short prayer, and gently threw the wreath into the air. Time seemed to slow. The wreath floated above the crowd. Noblemen jumped toward it. One missed. Another slipped. The wind suddenly changed direction. The wreath drifted farther than anyone expected. Leon looked up in surprise. Before he could step away, the wreath landed perfectly in his hands. The entire square became silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then someone shouted, "The beggar caught it." Another voice cried, "Impossible." A third man laughed loudly. "The richest merchant's daughter is going to marry a poor traveler." Soon the whole square filled with whispers, laughter, and shocked faces. Lord Demetrius turned pale. "No!" he shouted. "This cannot be." He hurried down from the platform and pointed angrily at Leon. "You! Drop that wreath immediately." Leon looked calmly at the golden leaves resting in his hands. "I did not mean to catch it." "Then throw it away," Demetrius shouted. Before Leon could answer, the chief priest stepped forward. "No one may throw away Apollo's wreath. Once it has been caught, the oath is complete." The crowd immediately became quiet again. Everyone knew the ancient law. Breaking the laurel oath was believed to bring terrible misfortune upon an entire family. Demetrius clenched his fists. There must be another way. The priest slowly shook his head. "The gods have already spoken." Helena walked toward Leon. Many people expected her to cry or refuse. Instead, she smiled gently. "What is your name?" Leon hesitated for a moment. He could not reveal his true identity. "My name is Thalin," he answered. "I travel wherever the road leads me." Helena nodded kindly. "Then today, perhaps, the road has brought you here for a reason." Her younger sister, Sophia, stepped forward angrily. "Sister, have you lost your senses? Look at him. He owns nothing." Several nobles laughed loudly. One of them shouted, "Perhaps he'll live in your father's stable." Another added, "Maybe the merchant's daughter enjoys sleeping on the streets." The crowd laughed again. Helena remained calm. She looked directly at Thalin. "Tell me honestly, are you a good man?" Leon was surprised by such a simple question. "I try to be." "Do you lie?" "Only when truth would place innocent lives in danger." Helena smiled slightly. "Do you work?" "Every person should earn his own bread." "Would you protect your family?" Leon answered without hesitation. "With my life." Helena turned toward her father. "Then I have made my choice." Lord Demetrius stared at her in disbelief. "You cannot be serious." "Apollo has chosen." "Apollo did not choose." Demetrius shouted. "The wind chose." The priest raised his staff. "Careful, my lord. Speak with respect before the gods." Demetrius lowered his voice, but his anger remained. "Helena, if you marry this beggar, you will no longer belong to this family." Lena looked sadly at her father. "If wealth is more important than your daughter's happiness, then perhaps I never truly belonged here." Gasps spread through the crowd. No one expected her to answer so bravely. Demetrius pointed toward the city gate. "Very well. Leave this house forever. You will receive no gold, no servants, and no inheritance." Helena quietly removed the expensive necklace around her neck and placed it into her father's hands. Then she removed her bracelets and rings. "These belong to your house," she said softly. "But my heart belongs to no one except myself." She walked down the steps and stopped beside Thalin. "I will keep the oath." Leon looked at her with surprise. "You hardly know me." Helena smiled. "That is true. But I know pride when I see it. And I know kindness too. You stood quietly while others fought. You did not celebrate when the wreath found you. That tells me enough to take the first step." Leon felt something warm inside his heart. No woman had ever spoken to him this way. She did not know he was king. She saw only the man standing before her. Suddenly, a frightened young servant carrying a large pot of hot soup slipped on the stone road. The heavy pot flew toward Helena. Without thinking, Leon quickly stepped in front of her. The hot soup splashed across his arm instead. Helena gasped. "You're burned." Leon smiled through the pain. "It's only a little burn." The frightened servant immediately fell to his knees. "Please forgive me. Please don't punish me." Leon gently helped the young man stand. "It was an accident. Go home safely." Helena watched everything silently. She had seen wealthy nobles punish servants for much smaller mistakes. Yet this poor traveler showed only kindness. She quietly whispered to herself, perhaps the gods truly guided this wreath. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the hills of Athens, Helena looked at Thalon with hopeful eyes. 3 days from now, according to the law, we shall marry." Leon nodded. "I will be there." Helena smiled warmly. "Then I shall wait for you." Neither of them noticed Marcus, watching quietly from the crowd. The captain smiled to himself. For the first time since becoming king, Leon was smiling not because of duty, but because of love beginning to bloom. Yet far away inside the royal palace, powerful nobles had already discovered that their king had disappeared, and some ambitious men were beginning to make dangerous plans. None of them knew that the future of the Phi kingdom had already begun to change because one simple laurel wreath had landed in the hands of a man dressed as a beggar. 3 days passed quickly. The people of Athens could not stop talking about the strange marriage. Everywhere in the city, people whispered the same story. "The richest merchant's daughter is marrying a beggar." Some laughed. Others shook their heads with pity. A few quietly admired Helena for keeping her promise. Early on the morning of the wedding, Helena packed her few belongings into a small cloth bag. She looked around the large house where she had grown up. Every room held childhood memories, but none of them could stop her from leaving. Her father stood silently near the doorway. He did not smile. He did not bless her journey. "You may still change your mind," he said coldly. Helena gently shook her head. "A promise made before the gods is a promise I will keep." Lord Demetrius sighed heavily. "Then from this day, you are no longer my daughter." Helena lowered her eyes for a moment. The words hurt more than she wished to admit. Still, she answered softly, "I pray one day you will forgive me." Without another word, she walked away. Outside the city temple, Thalon was already waiting. He wore the same simple clothes, but his face was clean, and he held a small bouquet of wild flowers he had gathered himself. "These are not as beautiful as the flowers from your father's garden," he said shyly. Helena smiled warmly as she accepted them. "They are more beautiful because they came from your heart." The old priest smiled as he watched them. Before the people and the gods, they exchanged simple vows. There were no musicians, no grand feast, and no expensive gifts. Yet both smiled with true happiness. When the ceremony ended, Helena took Thalon's hand. "Where is our home?" she asked. Thalon laughed quietly. "It is small." "How small?" "You will see." They walked through narrow streets until they reached a tiny stone cottage near the chalet edge of the city. The roof was old. The windows were small. A little olive tree grew beside the door. Helena looked around quietly. Thalon lowered his head. "I'm sorry. I know this is nothing compared to what you had." Helena stepped inside. The house had only one table, 2 chairs, a fireplace, and a small bed. She slowly smiled. "It is warm." Thalon looked surprised. "Warm?" "A house becomes a home because of the people inside it." Those words stayed in Thalon's heart. That evening, they shared bread, cheese, and olives by the fire. Helena laughed when she accidentally burned the bread. "Perhaps I still have much to learn." Thalon smiled. "Then we'll learn together." During the following weeks, Helena discovered that life was harder than she had imagined. Every morning they woke before sunrise. Thalon worked carrying goods at the harbor, repairing fences and helping farmers. Helena baked bread for neighbors, washed clothes, and sold small flower wreaths in the marketplace. Some people mocked them. "Look," one noble lady whispered, "the merchant's daughter now washes clothes." Helena simply smiled and continued working. She never complained. Every evening they counted the few silver coins they had earned. Sometimes it was enough. Sometimes it was not. Yet whenever Thalon apologized for their difficult life, Helena always answered the same way. "As long as we eat together, we are rich enough." Unknown to Helena, Thalon secretly left the cottage several nights each week. Marcus met him outside the city walls with a horse and a royal cloak. Before dawn, Thalon returned to the palace, ruled the kingdom, signed important papers, and met his ministers. Before sunrise, he changed back into his old clothes and returned home. No one in the palace knew where their king disappeared each morning. Marcus alone guarded the secret. One afternoon, while Helena sold flower wreaths, she noticed an old woman struggling to carry a basket of apples. Without hesitation, Helena helped her home. The grateful woman smiled kindly. "You remind me of someone." Helena laughed. "Who?" "Our queen many years ago. She never passed a stranger without offering help." Helena thanked her and returned to the market. She never noticed Marcus watching from across the street. That evening, Marcus quietly reported everything to Thalon. She helped the woman without expecting anything in return. Thalon smiled proudly. "She has done that every day since we married," Marcus nodded. "She truly does not care whether you are poor or rich." Weeks passed. Their love continued to grow. Sometimes they walked beside the sea after work. Sometimes they watched the sunset from the city hill. They dreamed about planting a larger garden and one day finishing their little home with children. Helena often said, "Happiness grows slowly, like an olive tree." Thalon would smile and answer, "Then let us be patient gardeners." But inside the royal palace, danger was growing. Lord Cassius, the king's chief advisor, had become impatient. "The king disappears every evening," he complained during a secret meeting. "He ignores noble families who wish to arrange a royal marriage." Another lord whispered, "Perhaps he has already found someone." Cassius frowned. "Impossible. Every noble woman in Greece would gladly become queen." A servant quietly entered the room. "My lord," he whispered, "we have discovered something." Cassius leaned forward. "Speak." "The king has been seen leaving the palace dressed as a poor traveler." Cassius's eyes became cold. "Find out where he goes." The next day, 2 of Cassius's spies secretly followed Thalon through the city. They watched him enter the little cottage. They waited until evening. Through the window they saw Helena laughing while serving simple soup to her husband. One spy hurried back to the palace. "My lord," he reported, "the king has married a common woman." Cassius stood silently for a long moment. Then a slow smile appeared on his face. "Excellent." The spy looked confused. "Excellent?" Cassius nodded. "If the people discover their king secretly married without the approval of the council, many nobles will turn against him." He walked slowly across the room. "And if the woman should disappear?" The spy looked nervous. "Disappear?" Cassius smiled darkly. "Then the king will become weak with grief." Meanwhile, Helena knew nothing of the danger surrounding them. One rainy evening, she waited at home while Thalon had secretly returned to the palace. Suddenly someone knocked on the cottage door. Helena opened it and found an injured young boy standing in the rain. "Please," the child whispered, "my mother is very sick." Without hesitation, Helena followed him through the dark streets. She spent the entire night caring for the boy's mother until the village healer arrived. By the time she returned home, the sun was rising. Thalin had already returned and was waiting anxiously outside the cottage. "Where were you?" he asked. Helena explained everything. Thalin quietly took her hands. "You risked your own safety to help strangers." Helena smiled gently. "If we stop helping each other, what kind of people would we become?" Thalin looked into her eyes. More than ever before, he wished he could tell her the truth. He wished he could say, "You are already worthy to be queen." But he remained silent. It was not yet the right time. That same afternoon, Marcus arrived secretly with terrible news. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "Lord Cassius knows someone has stolen your heart. His spies are searching for Helena." Thalin's smile disappeared. "Then she is in danger," Marcus nodded gravely. "Cassius believes that if he destroys her, he can control the throne." Thalin looked toward the little cottage where Helena happily watered flowers beside the door, completely unaware of the storm approaching her. He clenched his fists. No one will harm her. At that very moment, hidden behind olive trees across the road, two dark figures quietly watched the cottage. One whispered, "That's the woman." The other slowly nodded. Tonight, Lord Cassius wants her taken alive." Unaware of the danger closing around them, Helena looked up at the evening sky and smiled. "What a peaceful sunset," she whispered. But before another sunrise arrived, everything she believed about her husband and her own future would change forever. The sun slowly disappeared behind the hills of Athens. Helena finished watering the flowers beside their little cottage while Thalin quietly watched her from the doorway. He wanted to tell her the truth that very evening. He no longer wished to hide who he really was. Before he could speak, Marcus rode toward the cottage on his horse. He quickly jumped down and whispered, "Your Majesty, they are coming." Helena looked confused. "Your Majesty?" Thalin closed his eyes for a moment. He knew the secret could no longer remain hidden. "Helena," he said gently, "there is something I should have told you long ago." Before he could continue, several armed men surrounded the cottage. Their leader pointed his sword toward Helena. "By the order of Lord Cassius, the woman comes with us." Thalin stepped in front of Helena. "You will not touch her." The captain laughed. "And what can a poor traveler do?" At that moment Marcus drew his sword and shouted, "Protect His Majesty!" Soldiers hidden among the nearby trees rushed forward wearing the royal colors of Athens. The attackers froze in surprise. Helena stared at Thalin in disbelief. Marcus knelt before him. "Your Majesty, the palace guards await your command." Helena slowly looked at the man she had married. "Your Majesty?" Thalin gently removed the old brown cloak from his shoulders. Underneath, he wore the royal blue tunic of the King of Athens. Marcus placed a golden cloak over his shoulders. The soldiers lowered their heads respectfully. "Long live King Leon!" they shouted together. Helena could hardly breathe. You're the king." Leon looked at her with sadness. "Yes, my real name is Leon. I disguised myself because I wanted to find someone who loved me for who I was, not for my crown." Helena remained silent for several seconds. Then she quietly asked, "Why didn't you trust me with the truth?" Leon lowered his head. "Because I was afraid. Every woman I had ever met wanted the throne. I feared that if you knew, everything between us would change." Tears filled Helena's eyes. "You should have trusted me." Leon nodded. "You're right. I was wrong. I have fought many battles, but telling you the truth frightened me more than any enemy." Helena looked into his eyes. She saw not a king, but the same kind man who had protected her from the hot soup, carried heavy baskets for old people, and shared simple bread beside a small fire. She gently smiled. I did not fall in love with a crown. I fell in love with the man wearing old clothes. Leon smiled with relief. Before they could say another word, Lord Cassius himself rode into the village with dozens of soldiers. Your Majesty, Cassius called loudly, pretending to smile. We have been searching everywhere for you. Leon stepped forward. Searching for me or searching for my wife? Cassius's smile disappeared. She is unworthy of becoming queen. Helena calmly stood beside Leon. Cassius pointed toward her. She is only the daughter of a merchant. The nobles will never accept her. Leon answered firmly. The people will. Cassius laughed. Then let us ask the people. Within hours, the city square filled with thousands of citizens. News had spread across Athens that the mysterious beggar was actually the king. Many people could hardly believe it. Lord Demetrius pushed through the crowd, shocked beyond words. When he saw Helena standing beside the king, he covered his face with his hands. Cassius stepped onto the platform. People of Athens, your king deceived you all. He secretly married without the approval of the royal council. Is this the behavior of a true king? Some nobles shouted in agreement. Others remained silent. Then Leon stepped forward. He removed the golden crown from his head and held it in both hands. Citizens of Athens, he began. Everything Cassius says is true. I hid my identity. I walked among you dressed as a poor man. I wished to know whether kindness still existed beyond the palace walls. Crowd listened carefully. Leon continued. Many ignored me. Some laughed at me. Some treated me with cruelty simply because they believed I was poor. He looked toward Helena. But one woman saw only my heart. Helena quietly lowered her eyes. Leon smiled warmly. She gave up wealth, comfort, and her own family because she believed honesty mattered more than gold. She chose a poor traveler without expecting anything in return. Tell me, people of Athens, is such a woman unworthy of becoming your queen? The crowd became silent. Then an old woman stepped forward. It was the same woman Helena had once helped carry apples. She helped me when nobody else would, she said. A fisherman raised his hand. She gave food to my children during the winter. A young mother smiled. She cared for my sick son all night. One by one, more people stepped forward. Every person shared a story about Helena's kindness. Soon hundreds of voices filled the square. She deserves to be queen. Long live Queen Helena. Kindness is greater than noble blood. Cassius looked around in disbelief. His plan was falling apart. Desperate, he secretly pulled out a small knife and rushed toward Leon. Before anyone could react, Helena stepped between them. Cassius pushed her aside, but Marcus immediately knocked the knife from his hand. Royal guards surrounded Cassius and placed him under arrest. Leon quickly helped Helena stand. Are you hurt? He asked with worry. Helena smiled. Only a little. Leon gently held her hands. You just saved my life. Helena laughed softly. I suppose we're even now. You saved me from the hot soup. Even the soldiers smiled. Lord Demetrius slowly walked toward his daughter. Tears filled his eyes. Helena, he whispered. I judged a man by his clothes, and I nearly lost the greatest daughter a father could ever have. Helena warmly embraced him. Then let us not lose any more time. Her father hugged her tightly. Can you forgive an old fool? Helena smiled. During the ceremony, Leon stood before the people and said, Years ago, I believed a king needed the richest queen in Greece. I was wrong. A kingdom is not built upon gold. It is built upon kindness, honesty, courage, and love. He gently placed the royal crown upon Helena's head. The crowd erupted into cheers. Long live King Leon. Long live Queen Helena. From that day forward, the palace changed. Rich and poor alike were welcomed with respect. Servants were treated kindly. New laws protected ordinary families. Every year, on the day of the Laurel Festival, King Leon and Queen Helena returned to the same city square where fate had first brought them together. They told every young couple the same lesson. Never judge a person by their clothes, their wealth, or their title. A kind heart is the greatest treasure anyone can possess. The old laurel wreath was carefully displayed inside the palace, not as a symbol of royal power, but as a reminder that true love often arrives when we least expect it. Many years later, parents still told their children the story of the merchant's daughter who married a poor traveler, never knowing he was the king. They would smile and end with the same words. Sometimes the gods do not give us the person we want. They give us the person our heart has been waiting for all along. And whenever the spring breeze carried olive leaves through the streets of Athens, people remembered that the happiest kingdom was not ruled by the richest king, but by the king who first learned to live as a beggar and the queen who loved him before she ever saw his crown.